Hello and welcome to the Nature Garden Podcast with me, Carl Steinson, and the Weekending Show team from Lionheart Radio. In this episode, frost and drought have been keeping Tom on his toes, and he's fresh back and buzzing after a visit to the Chelsea Flower Show. Tom Cadwallender's taking a turn at volunteering, the pun is intended, and he's listening to the spring songs of blackbirds and thrushes. And sustainability is one of Steve Lowe's missions as he finds out more about composting, wormeries and hot bins at the Cresswell Pele Tower. Plus some top tips for the garden from Tom P. All coming up on the Nature Garden Podcast. Well, they're terrible twins, frost and drought, and both have been keeping Tom on his toes as he's been away to Chelsea. But he's got a few tips for the garden when you're away on your jolly bobs and you want to come back to thriving plants. Hello, Tom.
Hello. I hope you're coping and enjoying your May gardening, because this can be quite a tricky month, especially as we approach the second half. Frost is always a possibility in the air here in North Northumberland. It's the worst possible time because we have so many young and, in some cases, tender, half-hardy plants, vegetable and flowers, and they've been brought on in the greenhouse from seed or plugs, put into pots and transferred into pots, ready for the day they're planted out in the garden. And with a good root system, I always think they hit the ground running, keep on growing away from the soil level, away from pests such as slugs and snails. What happens though when you're going on holiday or you decide to take a few days break in May? Not straightforward. And this can be compounded, not just the frost. If we have a dry spell, and that's certainly what we've had recently, quite a long period, I can't remember the last time it rained. And here we are, introducing young plants to the garden, frost a possibility, and getting near drought conditions. If you water, it evaporates into the air almost before it hits the ground. Some of the temperature's been up to in the early 20s Celsius occasionally, recently, and it's not good for young plants. If you've got a good friend living nearby, or an acquaintance, or someone who's prepared to come in and water the plants in the greenhouse for you, let alone water those plants in the house, let's not forget about them. In the house, in the garden room or the conservatory, we have some resident pot plants, and they, at the moment, have needed watering every day. So, if this is possible, do something about it. Get a deep tray. We have 2 or 3 deep trays we bought over time, about 2 centimeters deep, a third of a meter wide, maybe a quarter to a third of a meter, and almost a meter long. And we put pea gravel, that's a pea-shaped gravel, in there, and water it up to the level of the top of the gravel and stand the pots on that. If you're going to stand potted plants on that, make sure that when you potted them up, there were no crocks or roughage in the base of the plant for drainage. It's preferable to have your compost straight down to the base where it'll settle and compost all the way up. This aids capillarity. That's the natural rising of the water from the base up through that compost into the roots of plants and up through the plants. That's one idea. Another for house protection of your plants while you're away. Put them in a room away from the heat of the sun, a shaded room, and put them in a tray if you wish. And they'll stand a few days there. Guess who's been on holiday? Yes, me. A short break, 3-4 days, down to London and of course Chelsea. Flower show was beckoning. I had to make provision for the plants to look after themselves. So those in the greenhouse were most important to me. Couldn't keep them there because even though there's an automatic ventilated system for the windows above your head to get plenty of air, which helps to keep down the heat in the greenhouse, water is a problem. So rather than invest in an expensive tube system or drip system into trays for watering, I've simply done the pea gravel, water on top, stood all the pots on there, and when I came back, heavens above, they had survived. Well done, you plants. At the moment, I'm in process of moving the summer display in and moving that's the flowers, and the others out. So I had to plant up early, take that risk of frost, got as much planted outside as possible, and those that I couldn't get planted in time, where in the containers and pots, I put them in a shaded part of the garden where they're not going to get much sunlight, watered them once before going. And then the biggest worry has been the tomatoes. But I grow my tomatoes on a sort of a two-root system, one in large pots on the greenhouse border, and then the substrate of the greenhouse border just beneath those pots. I fed that and watered it, saturated it, stood them on that, and some of the early roots have gone through the bottom of the pot into the substrate below. They're receiving water, soaked the lot, and when I returned just today from that break, everything was fine and dandy. How lucky am I?
I'm Tom Heap from Countryfile, and you're listening to the Nature Garden podcast.
Tom Cadwallender's a super keen volunteer, and he's been involved with monitoring a rare tern colony in Northumberland for quite some time now. And there's some very exciting news to report from his latest stints.
A few weeks ago, it was Volunteers Week, and I was reminded about how rewarding, how useful it is to volunteer for both one's own peace of mind and indeed for the organisation. I've volunteered for countless years, for 40, perhaps even 50 years, with a wide variety of organisations, and it's been fantastic. I've met some amazing people, and I've done some really quite amazing things. But these days, my volunteering tends to focus down onto two organisations, really, both bird-related, as you might expect. Firstly, with the BTO, the British Trust for Ornithology, I've been regional rep for 35 years, and I've been a bird ringer for 40 odd years. So yes, it's a long love affair, that one, I can tell you, and I continue to this day. And that is actually combined with my next bit of volunteering, and that's with the RSPB, the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds, and that's involved in kind of the greatest love of my life, I suspect, apart from Muriel, and that is with seabirds. And in 1991, I was asked if I would like to help in the monitoring of the roseate tern and on Coquet Island, RSPB Coquet Island, off the coast of Northumberland here, and quite near Amble. And that was in 1991, and I jumped at the chance. Last at that time, the population had gone down to something like 20 pairs. There was, in the 70s, had been up to sort of 250 odd pairs. But because of one thing and another, the population had kind of crashed, and the RSPB were keen to monitor and see how it gets along. And so I was engaged and to help and actually ringing these birds. So I was combining my two kind of major volunteering bits with the BTO ringing thing, and with the RSPB on terns, and to this day I'm still involved in monitoring terns. That was a Freudian slip, but yes, still involved in monitoring roseate terns, and I still have a lot of contact with the site staff on RSPB Cadwallender, and they do a fantastic job. And other volunteers have been involved this year, fettling up the nesting sites for the roseate terns. They nest in nest boxes, and we've got them on terraces, and the terraces have been really revamped early this spring, and they've really been sort of brought up to the 21st century, and nest boxes are on there, and the birds are starting to appear, and it's really fantastic, and it really works so well. And our season is just about to start. In fact, a lot of the terns are back from their winter quarters. The fantastic Arctic tern, which travels down into Antarctica to winter, that's back, and they're paired up, and they've got chicks there. And I've just heard that the roseate tern monitoring program is just about to kick off, and that's because we've got the first egg laid, which is amazing. I haven't got a handle on how many pairs there are so far, because they come in dribs and drabs, and we find them. There'll be a big wave in another week or so, and we'll get a big sort of number in. But they will come in sort of ones or twos every few days, right up until the back of May and early June, and we really haven't got a clue about how they're faring until kind of we've got the final numbers. But we'll be going across weekly to do the nest box check, and when the young are hatched, we'll ring the chicks, and that's another bit of great bit of work. And we last year we got up to 124 pairs, which was amazing considering the problems that we've had in the last couple of years with bird flu and so forth, and we lost almost 60% of the adults in previous years. But last year the productivity was just tremendous, actually. So it all bodes well. There was a lot of food around this last year, so that helped in the terms of the productivity. But it looks pretty good. But the sea's looking fantastic. We haven't got the final numbers on sand eels just yet, but we will do, and we'll wait for the season to unwind. But volunteering, this sort of volunteering really gives me a buzz. Hey, I'm a bit old in the tooth now, and I've been volunteering since, goodness knows when. And I've been involved with roseate terns since, as I say, 1991. And I still get a thrill, the fact that here I am, involved in the rarest breeding seabird that we have in the UK. And it's here off the Northumberland coast. And I'm involved with it. And I'm helping to kind of conserve the species and help to kind of get it over and try to increase the population, and increased it has, and nest boxes have played a magnificent role. The role of the RSPB has been fantastic. So yes, it's been absolutely brilliant. And so yes, if you get the chance to volunteer somewhere, just take it, because you never know where it might lead.
The RHS Chelsea Flower Show is one of the greatest gardening events in the world. It shines a light on great gardening, new ideas and innovation, and you know what? War Tom's fresh back from Chelsea and he's full of inspiration.
Why go to Chelsea, I hear you ask? It's just a flower show. Oh, this is true, but what a flower show. It's the daddy mummy of them all. It's so huge. It provides and presents to you the cutting edge of horticulture. Competitors come for the competitive sections from around the world. all the nurserymen and nurserywomen who raise the plants we're all fond of, be it fruit, vegetables, flowers, bulbs. They're there in the great pavilion, which is a big draw for me. But even before that, when you enter, you look down the East Avenue and you see little shops either side, all in a perfect line, left and right. 50 open-fronted retail units down either side, 100 to visit, and they sell anything remotely connected with gardening. Absolutely amazing. But that's for later. When I turn in to the main avenue on the right, just beyond the entrance, down the left-hand side are the large gardens, the designer gardens, top designers from around the world again. And they put on a magnificent display of a garden in competition. They're after gold, silver or bronze. And those viewing even early in the morning for an RHS member, of which I'm one in thousands, are in there, up to 6 deep, to get a glimpse of what's inside. Have a look, see which plants are in vogue. Recognise plants, don't recognise others. Good idea for planting back home. Chelsea is full of inspiration, which for me makes the long visit worthwhile. But you need patience. You need stamina to go, and you need a little sight idea in your mind. You can buy the brochure beforehand and decide which areas you're going to visit. So you have a visit plan. And if I said we've been going down, Judy and I, for 2 decades now annually, COVID stopped us, of course. That had to be online for a couple of years. But it's you get used to the site over time and able to walk around with some knowledge of where the things you need to see are. The first visit, we left early morning train from Alnmouth to King's Cross, underground to Sloane Square, walked a short distance to Chelsea, and spent 4 hours there. Did that journey in reverse all the way back up and home in the same day. It was a bit of a rush, and Chelsea, let's face it, is a bit of a bun fight with crowds, but it's a delicious bun fight which I love to immerse myself in. I come back with lots of ideas, and you don't realise immediately something you've seen, it's registered, but it's weeks later you think, oh gosh, I remember seeing that at Chelsea, and whether it's a new plant or whether it's some sort of contraption you're going to use in the garden, the whole thing is glorious. So let's move on to that great pavilion. The top nurserymen and women in the country, you'll recognise names when you see them. You've probably ordered from them, mail order, and had your chrysanthemums, onions, shrubs delivered. And now you can meet them in person because they're generally there and happy to talk to you. Amazing. And if you hear a bit buzz and you see a big crowd gathering, it's just that one of the personalities has turned up to interview them as well. That's one of the television or media personalities. As we were standing looking at, innocently looking at one display, a bit of a commotion near us, and it was one of the personalities had their television crew with them, and everybody vying to see what's happening. That's part of the system. Learn to try to ignore it through time and just move around nonchalantly. In the main area outside, where the large gardens are, design gardens, I was keen to see Monty Don's garden for his dog, and went down early in the morning, got there at 8 o'clock, and always went straight there to see what the setup was. Very good. And later on in the afternoon, as we were wandering around again near that area, there was a great roar from the crowd and waving and hooting, and Monty had turned up to please them, and the admiring crowd were all wanting a piece of the action. That's the film star bit, I guess, about Chelsea. But down to nitty-gritty inside, I was really pleased to see something with the RHS have, in recent years, they've gone towards environmental issues and criticised for having weeds with gardens in there instead of the beautiful flowers, etc. But one thing they're keen of is their new idea, which is green stem. It envelops scientific progress in horticulture, reflects society's determination to promote this essential aspect of gardening. There's a series of running experiments there, some by established universities. They've been set up in the Great Pavilion to include activity from gardeners. I went along, immersed myself in it. It was just brilliant.
And now it's a real pleasure to welcome back Steve Lowe, who's on a sustainability mission, composting in the walled garden at Cresswell Pele Tower with Pam Joes from Enrich the Earth.
Well, it's quite windy today.
Very windy today.
Yeah, we've been out at the walled garden at Cresswell Pele Tower, which I have to say, despite the wind, is actually looking fantastic.
Beautiful, I would say, today.
Yeah,
amazing.
And I'm here with Pam, and we've been doing some training on how to compost, which I think is a really important subject. And without me saying too much about it, Pam, do you want to give us a little bit of an introduction from your point of view?
Yeah, thanks, Steve. So my name's Pam Joes, and I work for an organisation called Enrich the Earth. And we're all about trying to educate people on how we need to look after our soil, that we need to improve the soil to grow food, and the circularity of growing stuff in your own garden, eating it, putting the scraps back into your compost bin, which then go on the soil to feed your crops for the following year.
And of course, this is not just about that. It's also about sustainability, isn't it? It's about us all doing our little bit.
Absolutely. And sustainability is such a wide topic. But basically what it means is trying to use as little of the Earth's resources as you can. And what you do use, keep it within your own circle. So if, for example, you can compost your food scraps and your garden waste and turn it back into a usable material, it means it's not being transported anywhere by the council bin wagons. It means you're not going to the garden centre to buy compost to feed your plants, and it reduces the carbon footprint of all of the stuff that we're doing, as well as you ensuring that the stuff that you're growing in your garden is chemical free and is fed by organic materials.
So I know that you're working in a partnership with lots of different community groups and things like that, and that's something that's been supported by what was there, Henry Doubleday Research Association.
Yeah, that's right. And they've renamed themselves Garden Organic because it's much easier to say. But Garden Organic have been around since 1958 and doing work on discouraging people from using peat, lots of research on the best growing mechanisms and so on. And when our organisation, Enrich the Earth, looked at how we could spread the word on composting, we realised that Garden Organic had some amazing resources and were doing some great work in this area. And I visited one of their composting demonstration sites across in Cumbria, where there are at least 8 or 9 different kinds of methods of composting, from wormeries, from hot bins, from green cones. And it was enlightening for me to realise that there were many ways that you could handle this kind of waste material. And the demonstration site was full of examples, great signage, and it led to a website which gave you even more information. So we're working with Garden Organic, and we're looking to set up these sites throughout the Northeast. And we were delighted when we came across the Cresswell Wall Garden, because it seemed a perfect opportunity to put some stuff in place there.
Great, yeah. Now, we've had 5 people today. I know a number of our volunteers have already done some of the training, which we did with groundwork elsewhere. And I just wondered, do you think we're putting it into practice?
Oh, very much, very much. And what has interested me, because I have no horticultural training whatsoever, I'm just been an amateur gardener for 45 years, but I learn something new at every site I go to. And, a long time ago, everyone knew how to compost and garden. It was part of our culture and heritage, particularly here in the Northeast. And it's kind of dismissed these days as sort of granddad knowledge. But my view is if we were in an indigenous South Sea Island community, this knowledge would be revered and referred to as elder wisdom. And I do think it's important that we recognise that these tools and skills for managing our planet a little more sustainably are actually there in our own communities. We just need to discuss them a little more.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. And I think that being able to share that with other people as well, we've got a perfect opportunity here at the Walled Garden because, as I say, there's people there right now, isn't there? We're managing to open it 7 days a week as well at the minute, which is brilliant. And if we can share that information, hopefully give people a little bit more comfort that they can do it themselves. If that's the way I would like to put it.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. It isn't a rocket science, and what works for one garden doesn't work for another.
Exactly.
And this is how we all gain this. We try something, think that works, that doesn't. You speak to a mate who's made it work because they did this, and that doesn't work on their soil. And it's that wonderful conversation you can have about, this is what I've done. Oh, I'm going to try that. And I've been doing this project for 18 months now, and my knowledge has increased 10,000-fold. And in actual fact, on today's training course, we've now trained 107 people in a formal sort of composting process. But visiting a site such as yours, which will have the bins installed as an example to the public, and just looking at the signage that explains how the composting system works, I think is a brilliant way of sharing this knowledge. And also your volunteers working on site have now gained that knowledge for themselves and are happy to share it with the visitors too.
Absolutely. I only joined in so I can get the T-shirt, obviously. I'm a master composter. But we are hoping to actually be able to offer this training from our site here.
And it's perfectly situated to do so.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Pam, it's been really, really good. I know that everyone has enjoyed it and they've all found out something new as well. And I learned something new yet again. And I think you do as well, don't you? Every time,
absolutely.
Don't you? So wanted to thank you and hopefully to encourage people to come along and have a go for themselves. We're here, as I say, at the Pele Tower. We're open 7 days a week now, during daylight hours, that is. And it looks fantastic.
It looks amazing.
So get yourselves along.
Absolutely amazing.
Thank you very much, Pam.
Okay, you're welcome, Steve.
And you can find out more about composting at Pam's website, enrichtheearth.co.uk. That's enrichtheearth.co.uk. The songs of blackbirds and thrushes are frequently featured on our podcasts, and this week Tom Cadwallender's taking a closer look at these beautiful birds and their amazing tunes.
Spring is just a wonderful time of year. It is truly one of my favourites. And it's full of sort of song, bird song is fantastic. And for me, one of the most iconic bird songs of the spring is not kind of the yellowhammer, a little bit of bread and no cheese, or the skylark with its exultation, anything like that. It's really quite a common bird, and it's the song thrush. You'll be all familiar with song thrushes. They sing from very early spring right through, and they're still doing it now. You may well hear one behind me. But the way you'll recognise a song thrush, song thrushes are part of, as you'd expect, the thrush family. And I'll explain a bit more about that shortly. But the song of a song thrush, it's a repeated noise. It's got the same sort of timbre as a blackbird, if you like, and indeed the mistle thrush. But it's the way it kind of constructs its song. It repeats, and it repeats quite regularly. It can go like, did he do it? Did he do it? Did he do it? Yes, he did. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. Did he do it? Did he do it? Did he do it? yes, you did, yes, you did, yes, you did. And it's that sort of song, that repetition, that gives it away. And we kind of recognise that noise because of it. You recognise the species because of it. And, you know, it is kind of iconic. It's in the countryside. The bird is actually in our urban gardens. And you hear, you know, if you're up early like I am, and it's currently about 5:30 in the morning, and if you're up early, you can hear them really quite clearly in lots and lots of places. Some people complain about being woken up by them. I think, goodness me, what miserable devils they are. But yes, the thrush family, though, is quite a decent-sized family. You know, we do get regular visitors from the continent during the wintertime of thrushes. The redwings and the fieldfares, they are kind of continental migrants, and they'll come across here for the wintertime. But they've all gone now. They're back in Scandinavia and points north doing their breeding thing. And so we're left with 3 regular species and 1 other thrush species. And the one I'm thinking of, which is a migrant as well, but it comes here for the summertime, which is kind of interesting, is the ring-ouzel. And that's kind of the upland thrush. And it looks like a blackbird, really, but it's got this super white crescent on its breast, and it's really quite something. But they're quite sort of isolated breeders, and you've got to find the right place for them. But the ones that we'll be familiar with, the thrushes, are the song thrush, the aforementioned song thrush, blackbird, which we are very, very familiar with, and the mistle thrush. The mistle thrush is kind of the largest, and it looks a bit like the song thrush. You know, the song thrush is brown and has a pale breast with lots of speckles on it, and so does the mistle thrush. But the mistle thrush has this crescent marking on its face, and it kind of gives it away. And it's about a third the size bigger. And mistle thrushes are really quite early nesters anyway. But they're not as common as song thrushes. And blackbirds, you know, the males and females are different, whereas the mistlers and the songies, the sexes are same. You can't tell the difference in terms of their plumage. But the blackbirds, the brown ones you'll see in your garden, are the females, and the black ones with the yellow bills are the males. And shortly you'll be seeing young birds coming into the garden as well, and they're kind of looking really quite russet and chestnutty, and they look like something else altogether, but they still have the blackbird look about them. But the song thrush, you know, it's gone through quite a lot of trials and tribulations. The staple diet of a song thrush are snails, and the population of snails, well, gardeners don't like them, basically. And sorry, Tom, but you know, they've used all sorts of things like molluscicides to clear them out of the gardens and so forth. And as a consequence, the song thrush population was in a massive decline over the last 20 odd years. And it was quite a concern. We hardly saw any, never mind hear them. And that really was a bit of a worry. But actually, in the last 2 years, and this year particularly, in my little wanderings, I've noticed the song thrushes really sort of shot away. The population, I'm seeing them everywhere, I'm hearing them everywhere. And they've really turned the corner. I think a lot of these molluscicides have been sort of stopped being sold, so they're not having the impact. So yes, and our bird population is of song thrushes is responding accordingly. So yes, and you think, actually, well, one species within the thrush family is recovering from that sort of problem. You know, the food's on its way, and there's poisons and all sorts of things. But then you think about the dear old blackbird, which is another iconic bird and part of the thrush family. And we see them in our gardens, and they'll come and feed in our gardens and things like that. And it's now sort of coming out that blackbirds' population are going down too. And there's this disease which is thought to have been carried in on mosquitoes, and it's gradually occupying the south coast of England. And over the last 5 years, it's spread right across the south coast of England. It's called something like Izulu, and it's quite an insidious disease, and it's actually doing for the blackbirds. It's not so bad up here in the north of England, but in the south, it's really doing for them. And these poor old blackbirds, they look as if, you know, if you find a corpse, it looks as if it's just sort of died of natural causes. But actually, if you watch a bird die of this disease, it's signs of weakness and spasms and things like that, and eventually kills them. And it really is quite an awful thing for these birds to die that way, and it's really quite a concern. And it's so concerning that as a team of our friends in the BTO, the British Trust for Ornithology, have set up a program now trying to understand what is actually happening with this population of blackbirds, and really what is going on, and trying to monitor the situation and try to do something about it. And it really is a concern when you think the iconic, I can hear a blackbird singing just behind me. Oh, wow, wonderful. Yes, it's a really iconic bird of our countryside and our gardens. Really is quite a familiar bird, and it's just a worry that they're going to have the population is in decline. From one thing to the next, and we see the return of the sky of the song thrush, and now we're having to see a decline in blackbirds. It's a really sad situation. But there we are. There's a lot of pressure on our birds in the countryside, and it really is a worry. But by the same token, get out there and enjoy birdsong at this time of year. It is absolutely wonderful. And skylarks are singing, yellowhammers are singing, wrens are singing, blackcaps, they come across, the blackcaps will come in and breed during the summertime. The African migrants, willow warblers are out there, chiff-chaffs are chiffing as well. And there's all sorts of things going on there. But you just get out there and listen. And if you are particularly interested in bird song, but you're not particularly experienced or knowledgeable about identifying birds, there is an app, and it's called Merlin. Some of you may still be using it, or may be using it, but it might be new for others. So just download the app, and it'll open a whole world of birdsong out there for you, and you'll enjoy it immensely, I'm sure. And it'll just sort of give you a chance to hear what's and identify what you're hearing, and it's absolutely wonderful. It's great. Anyway, folks, good to be back, and gan canny.
And so, to the sound of War Blackbird, here's Tom with some things to be getting on with in the garden.
So it's jobs for the week time. And the big thing at the moment, as we have a bit of drought around, in the absence of rain, pay attention to those plants, those young plants especially, and the older ones, of course, too. Some of the older trees or shrubs in your garden may start to droop, lose their leaves. It's just a fail-safe system for them. They may just completely lose their leaves, but don't give them up on that. Get water as much as you can in, as much as you're allowed to get in, to keep them going. And the chances are they'll certainly survive this. They'll not die immediately. It's been down to the roots, but they're keeping their energy, storing what little is left, ready for later this year or even next year. So don't give up on them just because they lose a lot of leaves. Just a safeguard for many of them. Watering, of course, some of the plants, the more tender plants or the softer plants like the tomatoes and fuchsias in pots, they, short of talking, will tell you when they need some water. They start to droop their leaves, and try not to let them get to that point. Remember, a watering can with some water over the leaves as well as into the soil. Moisture is absorbed through the leaves, and food, of course, foliar feeding is a way of keeping them going, but do it with water as well. Plants such as that, it's so important at this time. Planting correctly is equally important, whether it's a large plant, herbaceous tree, or a smaller plant you've bought in a pot or a pot you've grown on yourself. When you dig the planting hole, I wish some of the people demonstrating this would say, dig the hole, and especially in times of drought, this drought will go, this current one, but there will be droughts in future as global warming comes in. So why put the plant in and water on the top after you've made the soil firm? A lot of it will be lost through evaporation to the air. Why don't you, and this is a simple step, dig the hole, put some water in the hole so it's next to the roots where it should be, and then put the plant in, the roots, on that moist, wet surface you've just created, and then backfill the soil and make it firm, and then put more water on the top if you wish, but certainly put it down at the roots first where it should be. Conserve as much water as you can. If you've got a barrel to collect from drainage of a shed or a greenhouse, it's useful to have one of those so you've got natural water to count on when there's a shortage going round. Compost as much as you can, the greens and the browns of gardening, the scraps, the vegetable scraps, the potato peeling, apple peeling, things like that coming from the kitchen. Don't throw them away, don't waste them. Newspaper crunched up, and not too many grass cuttings, because if you put too many of the greens in, which tend to accelerate the system, it becomes a gooey mess, and the favourable bacteria can't do their work because there's not enough oxygen getting into the unit. I have the hot bin, which is really good, an enclosed unit, and it really composts fairly quickly. But even if you just got a compost heap, it can be very effective, a compost heap, but try to turn it occasionally if you can, if it's not too strenuous a job for you, and let some air into it. Mulching around your plants really does conserve moisture. I do it with the fruit trees and bushes in this garden, and many of the shrubs as well. A mulch in between them, and your herbaceous plants. It can be organic mulch, which you've composted yourself, or it can be some weathered cow or horse manure, which has been standing the test of time and has been weathered, and spread that. Dig as little as possible. No digging has been around for a long time. It's just not just a recent discovery. People have been planting. Keep putting mulch on the surface and not digging down, not disturbing the wildlife underneath there, which are beneficial, mainly beneficial. And that's another thing to try. Certainly, moving on just a little bit, don't cut your hedges yet. Some of the birds are having second broods, and don't disturb them, for goodness sake. I don't start cutting my hedges until we're well into June. The final thing is, with Chelsea in mind, you've probably heard of the Chelsea chop. Well, it's applied to certain herbaceous perennials at this time of year, and it has nothing to do with Chelsea. It's just that it comes, this first pruning of some of your weaker plants, weaker growth of plants, herbaceous perennials, comes about the time of Chelsea flower show. It stimulates new growth. If you've got a perennial and it's just got one or two stems instead of lots of stems, if you chop it back, then it has a better chance of spreading out and making a more bushier plant. Also, with certain plants, it can give you a second flowering. I'm thinking of the Helianthus, Echinacea, Phlox, Penstemon, and of course the herbaceous geranium. Whatever you're doing in the next few days, enjoy your gardening, folks.
You've been listening to gardener Tom Pattinson, birder Tom Cadwallender from the British Trust for Ornithology, and Pam Joes from Enrich the Earth in conversation with Steve Lowe from the Cresswell Pele Tower. Don't forget you can listen back to all of our previous programmes via the Nature Garden podcast. That's the Nature Garden podcast. I'm Carl Steinson. Thanks for listening and enjoy your gardening and time outdoors with nature. Bye for now.